guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zay and today I'm going to be wrapping up the books that I read in April. So April was a great reading month for me. March was not the best, but April made up for it and I had so many good books. I don't think I gave any books 3 stars. Every book was 4 or 5 stars. I believe I had one 6-star read. And it was just such a fantastic reading month. It was a great month of new releases that I read were absolutely incredible. It was just overall a really good reading month. It was a pretty good month as well. A couple videos ago where I reviewed some new releases that I read because I read so many of those books I've talked about and that took up majority of my reading. I actually just have like 3 books or so to talk about that I did not talk about in that video. So if you want more detailed reviews, you're welcome to go and watch that video. If you haven't, I go into detail. I review them all pretty. I go in detail. It's a longish video. Today's wrap up is going to be quite short because I've already talked about majority of the books that I read this month. I'm going to very quickly go over those books. Again, not going to go into too much detail. Just kind of give you guys the rundown and my rating, and then we'll get into the 3 books that I have not talked about that are some of my favorite books I read this month. I'm telling you guys, it was just a knockout of a reading month, and I am honestly so happy about it. My 6-star read of the month, and that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is her newest release, and I mean, it was never going to be anything less than at least a 5-star, but this did knock it out the park for me. It was even better than I could have imagined. I really love the setup of the story, and I thought it was like a fun, unique premise. But this is a perfect summer read, but it definitely is very emotional, packs an emotional punch. As usual, she always goes there with her books, and I think she handles those topics very, very well, and she always balances it out with humor, and it's just so natural and authentic to the story. Justin and Emma honestly blew me away, and I loved every second. I also really liked the conflict in this book. I think that she really handled that so well, and it's honestly how I prefer the conflicts in romance to be resolved. It just really worked for me, and I was kind of getting nervous about that, but she handled it so well. There was great communication, and both of the characters understood why they needed to make the decisions that they needed to make, and they respected that. And they gave each other the space that they needed, and I just absolutely loved it. So this was a 6-star read. I highly recommend it. Again, I gush and go into detail in my previous video, but this is 6 stars and absolutely one of my favorite books of the year. I must preface this by saying I really think that you should read Part of Your World and also yours truly prior to reading this. I just think you will appreciate it and have a stronger connection to the story and the characters, but you don't have to. You're totally fine to just jump right in to this. I think it's a great representation of her writing, but I must say that I think that you would just get a lot more payoff if you read those books prior to reading this one. The next book I read was Wild Love by Elsie Sober. This is the first book in her Rose Hill series, and oh my gosh, y'all, I love this book. This book had like a fun little spin on the single dad trope. I really thought that was unique, fun, and like I said, just a nice spin on that trope. I think the rest of the series is going to follow single dads, and they're all in this like bowling league together. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. But this was such a great book. Honestly, people say that this book reminds them of Reckless and also Heartless, but honestly, this book gave me flawless vibes. It just has amazing banter and tension between the characters. Rosie and Ford just have a very natural chemistry that honestly lit up the page. It was just so fun. It was a really great start to the series, and I really like the different vibe of this small town. It's not very cowboyish, and I really like that the direction that this series is going, and so far looking forward to reading the 2nd book in the series. Like I said, I did give this 4 stars. It's a slow burn romance, billionaire romance, brother's best friend, a lot of fun tropes that I think were executed very well, but this just wasn't like a 5-star read for me, but this was a really great one, and I highly recommend it. Next, I read Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. This is a sports romance following Sadie and Reese. Sadie is a figure skater, and then Reese is a hockey player, and this is a very emotional story. This is actually Peyton Corinne's debut novel. It came out a few months ago, last year. It came out last year, but then she got picked up by Atria, and which I think is absolutely amazing, and honestly, she deserves it. I really enjoy her writing style. I really enjoy the mental health representation in this story as well. I feel like she did a really good job with the representation in this book. This book definitely deals with some heavy stuff. My heart was like hurting so much for Sadie and all that she's gone through and all the trauma and things that she holds. But like I said, this is a fantastic story. I really like romances where both of the characters are athletes. I just find it to be interesting, and obviously our characters kind of have this bond over being athletes and having this sport that they love so much and that means so much to them. But this one went a little deeper than the sports. We do get some of the sports aspect in it. I was very pleasantly happy about that, but we also just get a lot of emotional depth of romance with our characters. I really love this story. I highly recommend it. I actually gave this 4 stars, but I changed it to 5 because I honestly loved it, and there's nothing that I would change about the book. I loved it. So this is a 5-star for me. So in the previous video, when I talked about this book, I did give it 4 stars, but I'm giving it 5. I don't know what I was thinking. Sometimes you just need time to sit and think about a book, and be excited for what Peyton Corinne has in store. I'm just such a fan of Unsteady, and I just can't recommend this story enough. If you like emotional reads, a new adult, Boys of Tolman, the heroine also gave me a little bit of Lily from the Addicted series vibe, so this is just very much up my alley and has a lot of elements that I love in my romances. Only in Forever by Chloe Leese. This is the last book in her Bergman Brothers series, which I love so much. This is not my favorite book in the series by far, but it was a really great send-off to our characters and to this family that we love and that we spent so many years reading about and growing with. It was really great to see all of the characters kind of make appearances with their families or just their partners in this book. I just love the Bergmans. They are just such a accepting, loving family that I think a lot of people can find a lot of comfort and healing in when they read this series. If you haven't read this series, I highly recommend it. It's just honestly like a feel-good romance series that's very uplifting and honestly highlights everything that I love about romance. I think in this book, I love this one though because we're following Vigo. Vigo is a character that we have loved and that we have wanted his book for so long. He's kind of been in the background scheming, you know, kind of making these love connections in all of the previous stories, and definitely kind of scheming on his siblings' lives and their love stories and their relationships. He is a romantic at heart. He's a lover boy. He loves romance books, and him and Tallulah bond over the fact that they love books. Like I said, Vigo loves romance books. He's opening up a bookstore. Tallulah is a thriller author. She's having some issues just dealing with some writer's block writing her new thriller book. It's a little bit different than what she's used to. She's kind of going in a different direction with the story, and she enlists the help of Vigo to help her. And Vigo needs some help with his bookstore. It's a really big responsibility. He has a lot on his plate, and they actually end up helping each other. They're also kind of roommates, so we get some forced proximity. And Tallulah and Vigo used to know each other in college, and it's been a long time since they've seen each other. And I just really like just how different these characters are. Tallulah's like anti-love, anti-romance, and Vigo is like all for that, and they really balance each other out so well. There's just a lot of vulnerability and honesty that these characters are able to communicate with each other, and I just really love the development of their relationship. I always think Chloe Leese does such a good job of that. It was very romantic, and like I said, just a very nice ending to this series that I just honestly couldn't recommend enough. If you want to give this series a try, I highly recommend it. All the books are out. They're also all out on audio, and I just adore this series, and I'm honestly so sad to see it go. We have Burnout by Rebecca Jinchak. So I've only read one other book by Rebecca Jinchak, but I must say this one was so amazing, and she is an author that has a pretty good backlist, and I think I'm just gonna go back and binge her backlist, and like when I don't know what to read, she's going to be an author that I have to go back to. That's a really big tip that I have, by the way, if you ever run into an issue where you don't know what to read, or you kind of run a book slump. I always think it's great to have an author in your back pocket that has an extensive backlist that you could just turn to read. She is one of those for me. But Burnout was absolutely fantastic. This is a 4-star read for me, but honestly, it's like 4.25, 4.25, very, very close to a 5-star. It was excellent. Again, this is a new adult sports romance. Both of our characters are athletes. Again, I just love that so much. Our heroine is an Olympic gymnast, and our hero is a motocross racer. And these two end up teaming up and kind of training together. Our heroine ends up helping train our hero, and our hero is kind of standoffish and things like that. But these two, obviously, we have forced proximity. They're spending a lot of time together, and they start connecting. And Knox, our hero, has a lot that he's gone through in his life, and I really like just the little bit of emotional depth to his character. And we get his brothers in this story. He has a very close relationship with his brothers because they've gone through so much together. I really love the bond that Knox has with his brothers. And again, you just really get to see a vulnerable side to Knox, and you really learn that there's more than meets the eye with him. You know, he has this reputation, and he's kind of this bad guy, tattooed motocross racer, and there's definitely more to him than meets the eye. And when we peel back those layers, we really get to see that from him. So I really enjoyed that. And this was just such a sweet romance that is so well balanced in sweet and spice and, you know, intrigue with them being athletes. We get a lot of that. I like when we actually get to see the sports element of a sports romance. So that was really fun. This was just an all-around really great romance. I think you can tell that Rebecca Jinchuk really likes sports romances. It's what she's known for. Guys, I love this one. Absolutely incredible. We have Midnight of Ashes by Tessa Hill. This is the second book in her Dragons of Ember Hollow series. This is a Why Choose Paranormal Dragon Shift romance series. And listen, I am not a Why Choose girly, but this series has officially changed me. I might be, or this might be the exception, right? There's always an exception to the rule, and this might be that exception for me. Honestly, this series is just pure fun. I love it. I love Hayden and the guys, and in this book we really get to see them kind of explore more of their dynamic and their relationship. So we get to dive more into their backgrounds. Our heroes have gone through quite a lot in their lives. They all have different stories and just different things that they're bringing to the table, and we really get to explore their trauma, because Hayden also has trauma. We get to explore their trauma as well, and really just get to see how they all work and how they really are just fated mates, and why it makes sense that they are all just really meant to be together. 4 stars. My only complaint is that I want more from the actual storyline. I just really think that Tessa Hill has intrigued me, and there's a lot going on here and in the background, and I really wanted more answers. I think we could have had more development with the actual plot. There's some things that were going on at the college, like catty things with some of the female characters, which I don't like. I find it to be just a smidge outdated. I don't care about that, and I think we could have used more of the plot and moved the plot more along. I feel like she's going to give us all the answers, and that's going to really have its spotlight in the next book, but I really think it could have used more development here. So I love the development of the romances, but I wanted more development with the actual storyline, with what's going on in this world of the dragons and the shifters. So anyways, I really love this. I highly recommend it. You must read the first book, Twilight of Embers. This is not a series that you can just read this one on its own. You have to read Twilight of Embers, then this one, and the next book comes out, I believe, in July. I could be wrong, but you don't have to wait very long. That's it for the books that I talked about in my previous video. You can go check that video out for more of an extensive reviews on all of those books. If you want more information, all that good stuff. But now we're going to talk about the 3 books that I've read that I haven't talked about, and honestly, they're all absolutely fantastic, phenomenal reads. So good. So I'm going to start with Unbreakable by Emma Scott. This was my backlist book of the month. I really want to start reading more backlist romances and just backlist books in general. And I love Emma Scott, so this is a book that I actually had on my TBR. So yay for me. And y'all, I loved it. It was amazing. This book is absolutely phenomenal, fantastic. Emma Scott is just so underrated. I just don't hear too many people talking about her. And it makes me so sad because she's amazing. And I just think her stories are just these beautiful, heartbreaking love stories. And she really goes there with trauma and these horrible things that our characters experience, but they come out through the other side and they find healing in themselves and strength, but also love. And I just love it all. This book is basically about two people that are at the wrong place at the wrong time. Alex and Cody are both end up at the same bank. Actually, a robbery is taken place and they're both taken as hostages, held as hostages at the bank. And Alex and Cody just kind of immediately connect with one another. They support each other. They get each other through this awful experience that they're going through. They honestly think that they're going to die. I will say the part of the book, which is several chapters in the first part of the book, of them being held hostage at the bank are tough to read. So I'm just throwing that out there. It's tough. Emma Scott does go there. But a lot of things happen in this bank. I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised by some of the things that happen in this bank, y'all. And it was just so intense. This was such an intense time. And Alex and Cody just go through so much along with the other hostages. And like I said, they really bond. They form this bond because they're just honestly like leaning onto each other for support and survival. So survive this awful ordeal and they're kind of right back into their lives. So Alex is a lawyer, a big time lawyer. She's engaged to her fiance. Things are going really well in her life, although her and her fiance, she's kind of been questioning things, but after surviving what she went through, she definitely is feeling very disconnected from her fiance and she's kind of questioning some things. And then we have Cody. Cody is a single dad. The mother of his child is actually trying to move away with his child, and Cody does not make the best money. He doesn't have insurance and things. He's kind of just struggling financially. He was actually going to the bank to pay a bill, which was very important that he get paid because he has a trial for custody of his daughter. Because like I said, the mother of his child is trying to move away with his daughter. And so he's just going through a lot. There's a chance that he could lose his daughter, lose his home. He's just going through a lot on top of having a lot of medical bills due to what he went through in the bank. And this is when Alex steps in and actually helps him out. And there's a forced proximity element to this story, which forced proximity makes everything better. And our characters are really bonded through this trauma that they went through. They really lean on each other and they just can't help but being drawn to each other. Like even after what they went through, all they want to do is be near each other because of this awful thing that they experienced. But it's also a little bit more than that. They help each other with what they go through in that bank, but they also help each other deal with what they're dealing with after. So there is PTSD in this book. They, definitely are dealing with the after effects of what they went through, but they're thrown right back into their everyday life and the things that they have to deal with in their real life. Love the story so much. Still Beating made me realize that I really love books about two people that experience something awful and they have this shared experience, something that the only person will understand, and they just find a lot of peace and comfort and safety within each other. That is something that this book gave me, those same vibes. If you've been wanting those vibes since you read Still Beating, this is that book. Or if you have another book that kind of has the same thing, let me know, because it's just something that I really love reading. But this was just such a beautiful book. It was very intense and beautiful, and the romance is just, very, very angsty because our heroine is engaged. I will say that there is cheating in this book. I know that's something that people really don't like. I will just throw that out there, that there is cheating in this book. If that bothers you, don't read it. But Emma Scott really goes there and she really shows these characters going through these real emotions and these real life things, and them feeling really scared for their lives and making decisions that they probably otherwise wouldn't do. And now they survive and they have to kind of deal with the repercussions of their actions and what they went through and what that means. So I love this. I highly recommend it. This is an amazing book that I just feel has gone way under the radar, and I highly recommend it. I have P.S. You're Intolerable by Julia Wolf. So this is a book that I have been wanting to read for a while because I've seen quite a few people talk about this book and I've been very curious about it, and I'm so happy that I finally read it. The audiobook came out this month, which was excellent, by the way. I highly recommend listening to this on audio. And not only did I love the audiobook, but I really loved the story. I really like Julia Wolf's writing. I think she's an author that could absolutely work for me. I'm going to read the other 2 books in the series. So this is the 3rd book in the series. There's 2 books out right now, and another book is actually coming out, I think, this month. And I don't know if that's the last book or what. So you can, I know some people like to read books in order. I don't care about that. And you can absolutely read this as a standalone. The characters do show up and make connections and things like that, but it didn't bother me one bit. But if it bothers you, then I recommend reading the previous books. But the reason I wanted to read this book is because the heroine is pregnant, but not with the hero's baby. And that is a trope that I have seen everywhere in the last few months, and I love it. I just think there's so much caretaking in that. It's just built in, and it's amazing. Like, we just get to see the hero really stepping up and taking care of someone else's child and doing what he needs to do to support the mother and being there for the mother and the woman that he's falling in love with. It just writes itself. It is an amazing microtrope that I cannot believe I never read before, and I am completely obsessed with that. But this book is the blueprint for me. This is the book that is officially making me obsessed, feral over this trope. I need more books like this. I only know of one other one. No, 2 after this one, and I need more. So give them to me. Give me all the recs if you have any. But anyway, this is a billionaire romance. It's an office romance, boss, assistant romance. Our heroine, like I said, is pregnant, but not with the hero's baby. We have a curvy heroine, which I love, and the hero is definitely a grumpy man. Anyway, so in the story following Catherine, Catherine gets a job working for Elliot, and Elliot is intolerable. She can't stand him. He is grumpy and just the most unfriendly, irritating boss. Now, like I said, Catherine is pregnant. Elliot doesn't realize she's pregnant for a little bit. Unfortunately, the person that she's got pregnant by has basically abandoned her, and he's left her in a very awful financial and living situation that is unsafe and just not the best environment for her or the baby or newborn, and a mother who is recovering from postpartum to be experiencing. And when Elliot finds this out, he's like, this is not acceptable. You cannot live here, and you cannot be in this situation with your newborn and you recovering. And so he's like, you can come stay with me. Plus, he's like, you need to get back to work anyway. So I need to get you back to work. We basically see Elliot just like melting for Catherine and her baby, and the way that he just steps up to the plate and treats her the way that she's supposed to be treated, because it's absolutely heartbreaking to read about Catherine. Catherine doesn't have a lot of support. She has no support from her family. She's in no contact with them. And then this person that she trusted and had a baby with has abandoned her. You just feel so awful for her, a woman who's recovering from postpartum and has this beautiful baby girl and is in this situation because of this man and financial situation. And to see Elliot step in and support her and help her and create a safe environment for her and her baby was just so beautiful. And the most perfect gentleman, and I really loved their connection. Fun kind of connection that I really loved. This is a pretty low angst story, but the romance has a lot of tension, which I really enjoy. So I just love this book. I highly recommend it. I did give it 4 stars because something happened near the end of the book that I just really didn't like. And I'm kind of thinking that the author my interpretation is the author maybe didn't know how to end this book. And I had an idea of where she could have ended it. And then just kind of kept going. And there's some things at the end where I just started feeling like the plot was unraveling and things just kind of got a little crazy. But for that reason, I gave it 4 stars. Like, I couldn't control how and what it was with that. But the relationship, the romance, this is honestly an almost perfect book for me. This was amazing. I highly recommend it. Everything they're saying about this book is true. Also, it's been a long time. I used to read so many boss employee, like office romances. Those used to be my kryptonite, and it's just really fun to kind of go back to something that I loved so much at the beginning of my romance journey, and this is definitely top tier. So lastly, we have Before Us by Julie Ann. So here's the thing. I have an interesting relationship with Julie Ann's books. I have not liked any of her books. I've tried to read so many, and I've DNF'd all of the books I read by her. I just don't count them, but the furthest I got was If This Is Love. And her books just don't work for me. Like, her premises pull me in, they sound interesting, and then it just doesn't work for me. And so what made me give this one a try? Well, I remember Mary from More to Mary, who I love, by the way. She's one of my favorite YouTubers. She's just so much fun to watch. She loved this book and she talked about it in her favorites of last year. And this book kind of popped up when I was on Audible and I was just like looking through some audiobooks, and I saw this one was narrated by Charlotte North. She's one of my favorite narrators. She's so underrated, but she's a fantastic narrator. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this one a try. I went into this one completely blind. So I'm going to talk about this book like this. I'm going to tell you all a little bit about it. And if you want more information, I'll tell you. But if you don't, and that's all you need, then I'm just going to give you guys just an overview, like a quick little thing of the book, okay, to kind of catch you. And then if you need more, I will explain and I will pitch it to you. But this book is fantastic. 5 stars for me. I loved it so much. Let me tell you what this book is about. So in this book, we're following Emerson. Emerson is a maid, and she is definitely struggling in her life. She has epilepsy and she has a lot of medical bills and debt and things like that that she really needs to pay off. So she doesn't have a house right now, doesn't have a home, and she's just working her butt off trying to, take care of herself the best way that she can. She doesn't have a lot of support or any friends or anything like that. And she gets an opportunity to work for this couple, Susie and Zach. Susie is actually very sick, okay? She's sick with cancer, and Zach is a pilot, and they just need some help around the house. Now, what ends up happening is Emerson really starts to connect with Susie, and they form a very special friendship. And it's something that means a lot to Zach, and it's something that means a lot to really him and Susie. Emerson becomes a very important person in their life. Because of that, this basically changes Emerson's life, okay? This completely changes her life as she knows it, because of Susie and Zach. All I'm gonna say, just know that this book has some really great tropes in it. Zach is an absolutely amazing man. The way that he is with Susie, like, my girl Emerson was like, oh my gosh, like, I want this kind of person. But I loved it. Now, that's all I'm gonna say. If you need more information, I'll give it to you, okay? So if you guys don't need any more and I can pitch you on that, just know that this has a very great trope that I really love. I'm gonna tell you all a little bit more about it if you need a little bit more convincing. Okay, so Susie ends up passing away, and something that Susie wanted from Zach after she passed is she didn't want him to just be like so sad that he wasn't living his life. She really wanted him to grieve, but like live, okay? Not stay in that grief for too long. Move on with your life, like live for her, because she was just so full of life. And one thing that she wanted him to do is she wanted him to do something special for someone else. She wanted him to make an impact in someone else, do something good for someone. And that Emerson does not have the financial support to take care of herself. He steps in right away and ends up helping her. And he pitches to her that they get married so that she would have some financial support. And also, she's a photographer, and this would be a great opportunity for her to be able to travel and just get new potential job opportunities and make some connections. So we have A Marriage of Convenience, which I love, and this is just a very emotional book with Emerson and Zach both grieving Susie and also falling for one another, but Zach is really struggling with this. Honestly, a book that I just genuinely could not put down. I was so immersed in the story, and Julie Ann's writing was just really beautiful in this book, and it just really worked for me. I'm really connected to this story. It's just, honestly, she outdid herself with this story. It just really touched me. I loved it so much, and I just thought it was so beautiful and emotional and heartbreaking and so angsty, okay? So angsty. But this is a book that I would absolutely recommend. It's the perfect recipe for a romance to me. It just had so many elements in the story that I love so much, and it was just perfect, and it was executed perfectly in my opinion. So I love this book, one of my favorites I've read, makes me want to go and try more. By Julianne, I know Nikki has told me that she really likes For Lucy, and I think that's one that she has recommended to me personally, so that's probably going to be one that I try. I know she just came out with a recent one that sounds so good, so I'm going to be definitely trying to read more by Julianne. But sometimes you just need to give an author a second chance, and sometimes that book just works, or sometimes that's just the exception to the rule, right? Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you all read in April. What were some of your favorite books you read? Just fill me in on everything. How was your month? Let me know. Let's chat. Let's catch up. Before Us has like the hero's a pilot, so like let's just do a little plane emoji. Okay, let's do a little plane emoji. All right, to let me know you guys made it to the end of the video. So thank you all. I'll see you on my next one. Bye.